Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the Spy Shack podcast, the podcast where superfans get together and talk the latest season of Survivor. And today is a special episode as we'll be recapping the full season of Game Changers with a special guest. For today, we have winner of Millennials versus Gen X, Adam Klein. Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Of course, of course. And as always, my co-host is Mark. Mark, how are you doing today?
So very freaking excited. I can't even tell you.
And Randy, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here with the only person that I've ever actually picked to win Survivor and gotten it right. So I'm excited about that.
So, like I said, we're going to go ahead and do a recap of the full season of Game Changers. But before we do that, we wanted to do something just a little bit different just to break the ice here. And I'm going to hand it over to Mark.
All right. So as always with our interview guests, we're going to start with a 1 minute ice-breaking rapid-fire round, lightning round. So Adam, if you're ready.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
And in 3, 2, 1, go. Do you like spicy food?
Yes.
Favorite wildlife animal?
Panda. I don't know.
Toilet paper, over or under?
Oh, definitely over.
There you go. Favorite singer or band?
Goo Goo Dolls.
Wow, nice. Biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve. Snoring? I don't know.
Okay. Favorite day of the week?
Saturday.
Your favorite drink?
A margarita.
Favorite type of candy?
Sour Patch Kids.
Nice. What foreign language would you most want to learn?
Chinese.
Favorite fast food chain?
In-N-Out.
If you have a time machine, would you travel to the past or the future?
Ooh, past.
Okay. Favorite movie?
Airplane?
Would you go back to your survival location for vacation?
Yeah. Will I go back to Fiji? Yes.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Did I get through all of them?
You got through most of them. I have a big list of like about 50 questions, so you're doing fine.
50. All right. Well, if you want to,
I got one important one that to kind of break the tie here amongst us. Pineapple
question?
pizza, yes or no?
Oh.
what was the question?
Pineapple pizza, yes or no? It's a debate amongst us.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Woo.
Was that was on Twitter, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was on Twitter.
Yeah.
Pineapple Lovers actually won that one.
Of course we did.
Come
That was
on.
by like 67%.
Pineapple pizza. Everybody does. It's pizza. Pizza is like Survivor. Even when it's bad, it's good, right?
There you go. So, Adam, what have you been up to since winning Survivor?
Only podcasts. That's it. I'm trying to get on as many different podcasts as possible. No, what I've been doing is I've been doing a lot of traveling. I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements. I've been doing a lot of fundraising for lung cancer research. I've worked with a number of different lung cancer organizations. I'm partnering with obviously Stand Up to Cancer, which we kicked off at the finale. I've been working with the American Lung Association, and we just did about a 20-day long campaign with CVS pharmacies, where my voice was like playing in the stores every like 30 minutes for 20 days. And you could donate at checkout, and they raise millions of dollars for lung cancer research through the American Lung Association. Through that, I've been working with the Bonnie Adario Lung Cancer Foundation and raising money for that via my You Caring campaign, which you guys very generously donated to. And I've been working with the American Cancer Society as well and doing some speaking for them. So anywhere where I can lend my, as sad as it is, because I don't consider myself a celebrity at all, but I am probably the most visible voice talking about lung cancer right now. You just don't hear people in the media or on television or in the movies or whatever talk about lung cancer. And even when lung cancer is a part of the story, they'll just say cancer because there's this stigma around lung cancer that no one wants to admit to having it or their loved one having it, because then the next question is always, well, did they smoke or whatever it is. So as much as I can lend whatever fleeting visibility I have from this whole Survivor thing towards that cause, I feel like right now that's sort of my calling, and it's helpful for me in my grieving process to have something to focus on that I think is going to be beneficial for people. So I've been doing a lot of that, speaking engagements, traveling, that sort of thing. I went to the Big Brother Canada finale in Toronto a couple weeks ago, which was so much fun. Met a bunch of them. I went to the reality rally in Temecula. I was in LA for the Survivor finale, but I could not get a ticket. I couldn't get a ticket to the actual show. I even tried seat fillers. I couldn't get a ticket that way. I failed, but I went to like the after party, and then I'm going to like Hearts of Reality in August. So I'm just soaking in the being in this reality TV family and having a lot of fun with it, while trying to do some good with it as well.
So it is great to see that you're actually using your win to support something that you're very passionate about and something you want to bring awareness to. And yes, I understand what you're saying about the stigma of being the lung cancer. Everyone automatically assumes that it was because someone was smoking for years and years, and that's how they received it. There's a lot of ways you can get cancer. Well, cancer is just one of those things, it just kind of comes up sometimes. I see that we've been talking for a couple of months here. You went to Australia. How was that?
Yeah, I had. I did. Yeah, and I didn't even mention that I went to Australia and met like the Australians, like 14 of the Australian Survivor contestants. They're just like, between the Australian Survivor people and like Canadians, I've met like the nicest people in the world over the last few months. I mean, some of the some of these people like hosted me in their home, like Phoebe and Nick and Christy and Kylie took me around all over the place, and I just had such a great time with them. I met so many of them, and they're all such incredibly nice people. Flick, I spent a bunch of time with Flick in the Gold Coast, I did some watch parties in Australia and met some fans there as well. Had a really, really good time.
Yeah, it looks like we have one of the fans from one of the watch parties actually here in the chat room, kind of saying he met you in Sydney and had a great time. It was great meeting you, from Jimmy. So it's great to hear that. That's
awesome. That's awesome. I want to say that I am picturing who Jimmy is, but yeah, I think I remember.
So let's talk about the season. Just overall, without going into too much detail, what did you think of Survivor Game Changers?
I have to be honest. I went in with somewhat low expectations. I just heard some rumblings that it wasn't a great season. So I was really pleasantly surprised with what they were able to put together. I think maybe it was tough in terms of the filming out there. Obviously there were a lot of egos in the cast. There was a lot of conflict within the season. And so, it might not be the closest knit family in the world that, the cast from that season. But they certainly made for entertaining blindsides and television. I mean, I sort of figured that this would be a merge that would be a bit of a pagonging. Maybe one side would get the numbers, and it certainly didn't happen like that. So I thought it was a lot of fun.
It's when we heard what was going to happen as far as the season theme, I think before the end of your season, we actually knew who the cast was already, minus Zeke and Michaela. What were your thoughts on what the list of this season was, the cast itself?
Yeah, I was a little bit worried at first because you can see just by looking at the cast that you have some absolute Survivor legends. Staree, Sandra, Malcolm, you have Tony, these people who have huge targets on their back. And then you had people with the tiniest little targets on their back, that, no one would ever be afraid of going into the season because they just didn't get the chance to really make an impact their first time around. But casting knows what they're doing and production knows what they're doing, and even the people that didn't make a big splash their first time around, they knew they had the potential to this time. So, what you have are some decent players that are coming into the game with other really strong players, but some of them have these huge targets and some of them have these little small. So I was worried that the small targets would just take out all the big targets, and we did get a bit of that. The boot order, if you were just looking at it from before the season ever started, you would say, we're losing all of or most of the legends early on in the season. And so that was definitely disappointing. When you compare it to a season like Heroes vs. Villains, where the entire cast basically are these legendary players, you're going to have a finish where you have these players at the end who people recognize as like the all-time greats. I think people entered into that category this season, but you definitely lost a lot of greats early on.
Do you see that more of being just an ego issue, where the people with the legendary characters or players just went at each other way too fast, and then the little target players were just waiting down here under the radar?
Yeah, I think they were scared of each other, and the best thing for everything would have been like, in the very first episode, I remember, because I did power rankings with Gordon Holmes, and I remember one of the things I said in like my pregame power rankings for Aubrey was Aubrey's best bet is going to be to insulate herself with the biggest threats in the game so that she becomes the smallest threat in the game. Like if she aligns with Tony and Sandra and Malcolm, then she's going to be all right. And that started to happen. In the first episode, it was like, oh my God, it's coming together. Like she's doing exactly what I hoped would happen here. And then instantly, Tony and Sandra distrusted each other, and it fell apart. I think if the two of them could have came together and said, look, we cannot go after each other, the whole season would have been entirely different.
Yeah, I think Aubrey tried to go that route. It seemed like that she tried to go that route, but just her allies couldn't work together. It was kind of her problem there.
Yeah, I mean, she was ready and willing to work with Tony, but no one else was. And I think that if Sandra had, if some of the other people on that tribe had, then they would have insulated themselves more.
Yeah. The entire world started cheering when, Sandra and Tony were planning to work together, and then the world immediately started drinking again, and that fell apart immediately.
Right. Yeah. But, at the same time, I can't fault Sandra for that, because if you can't trust the person you're working with, it doesn't matter. All the theory in the world goes out the window if you have conflict, if you have distrust, and they couldn't do that. So
we have a question here in the chat. First, we'll go with Mark. Who was Adam rooting for in season 34 outside of Zeke and Michaela?
I became friends with Ty. Actually, I met Ty. I just posted about this on Instagram recently, but I met Ty at a watch party in San Francisco about a week and a half before I left for my season. My friend Claire randomly got invited to this watch party, and she was like, do you want to go? Because she knew I was a big Survivor fan, but she had no idea that I was about to go on the show. And I remember we were about to walk into this like warehouse or whatever, and she's like, oh my God, we're going to meet people from Survivor, like the real show. How cool is that? And I'm thinking, ooh, you are going to be excited in a few months. And so we go in there, and it was a really intimate thing. And it was like maybe just 20 people. I still don't know how I got to go to this, but there was maybe 20 people. Shireen was there, Ty was there, Neil's brothers were there. And so I sort of got to pick their brains a bit. And I jokingly, because I knew about 34 already, the rumors were already out there. And so I said to Ty, I was like, hey, Ty, 34, huh? Maybe you might go back? And he was like, what? No, are they doing All-Stars? And I was like, come on, Ty, they are. He's like, oh, that's the first I've heard of it. Tell Lynn to call me. So not knowing that I have, that I actually was in contact with Lynn or whatever, he was just jokingly like, have them call me. And I was like, well, you know, if I'm ever out there with you, like, go to the end together, wink, wink, you know, like, ha, ha, ha. And there was a non-zero chance that Ty and I would actually end up on the beach together for 34. I mean, I going away for 6.5 weeks was already more than my family, you know, could realistically handle at that point. So it was really just a joke. But, you know, there was a scenario in which Ty and I end up playing Survivor together one day. So it was kind of fun to go from that to then actually being on the show. And then he came to my watch parties. Here's a funny little moment that's just so Ty. He came to my watch party and he brought a jar of honey. I was like, oh my God, like, Ty, like, did you make this honey? And Ty was like, no, like, the bees made it. And I was like, oh. So we became friends. So that's a really long answer to say I was also, you know, rooting for Ty, just because we sort of became friends. But then, you know, I really wanted to see like some of these legendary players do well. Sandra, Sari, Tony, I thought if they could pull it out, that would be amazing. And I could not believe how well Sari did. Well, Sandra too. I mean, but yeah. Sari, I would not have bet that she was going to be in the finale. I actually did bet that Sandra would be. But Sari kind of took the spot of what I anticipated would happen with Sandra, where I thought Sandra is such a massive legend, such a big threat, that I could see people wanting her to help them in the game and then go all the way to the end, and then right before the end be like, thanks for the help along the way. Now you're not winning immunity challenges, so we can get rid of you, and you're a huge threat to win the game at the end. So, you know, I sort of thought that might happen with Sandra, but it ended up happening with Sari.
So we have Wes Dorn in the chat room. It says, Adam, now that you've won Survivor and met Wes Dorn, what else is there left to do?
That's it. I honestly didn't know what to do with myself. And then finally, I got to meet Wes Dorn at the watch party, and it was like I was thinking, maybe I can make a good enough impression that he'll find me interesting enough to follow on Twitter, and it happened. And so, what else is there?
I have talking about the Game Changer season. This season, we saw a lot of different idols and a lot of different advantages available to play during the gameplay. What is your thought of the overabundance of idols and advantages that are available?
So I think the complaint about too many idols is doesn't really have merit, because it's the same number of idols that we've had for many seasons. As long as the 3-tribe format has been around, there have been 3 idols, you know, in the game in the pre-merge. So this was no different. And when one gets played, another one gets put out there. That's just the way it goes with idols. So I think what maybe people weren't happy that they all got held until the end, and then they all came out at once. But that's the risk that you take with idols, and it gave us a moment that we've never seen before. In terms of the advantages, I like that they're mixing it up with the advantages, although I prefer when players know that an advantage is in play, just in terms of fairness. Because let's just say if I went home because of the legacy advantage, I would have been a little like, you know, I don't know that it exists. You know, I guess theoretically everyone had an equal chance to get it. And maybe we should have been looking for that kind of thing in the marooning, but nothing like that had ever happened before. So, you know, it would have been a bummer if there's no way that you can, like, sort of prevent that. Whereas now I feel like the legacy advantage is totally fair game, because, you know, if you're going into a season, this is something that has happened before. You should anticipate that it would happen again. And you should be aware that that possibility is out there. So from an entertainment perspective, I love the advantages. I think they're great. From a fairness perspective, I like them a lot if you have some way of predicting that that something like that might be out there.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your thoughts of the change of the tiebreaker?
So we actually never got to see that play out this season, huh?
No.
I think from an entertainment perspective, it's good. You know, I think it's tough to navigate when you're out there.
Would that change any votes when you're out there, do you think?
Well, we sort of knew we might go to Rocks when we went to Rocks, so I don't know that it would have changed that. Although, maybe someone would have switched their vote before. It's hard to say. I'm trying to think if there were any other votes that it would have made a difference for. Maybe we would have been a little more nervous about how we split votes. Although when we split against Taylor and Jay, like, it was pretty lopsided.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it would have changed a whole lot significantly. I mean, what it's designed for, if I'm not mistaken, is the situation where you have, like, say, 6 people on a tribe. Like, I think the Brains did this in Korong, where they did 2-2-2, and then could re-vote all on one person. So that's sort of what it's designed for, and we haven't had that really as a possibility in this last season. I don't think there was any instances in which that came up. So I think it's good for that particular instance, but it definitely increases the stress level on the players, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, you brought up a good point about the idols here a little bit ago, on the idols in the game, and one record that you hold is the latest idol find in a game on day 37. So should Aubrey have looked for an idol at Final 5 after they were all played?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I really don't think that production would put an idol back in the game with one day left to go. But they can do whatever they want. If they wanted someone to find an idol, they could throw one back out there. I do think that the idol that I found had been in the game for a while.
I agree.
And you know, maybe even when Dave played his at 10, or when I played mine at 9, probably after when Dave played his, I would guess maybe one went back into the game. Mm-hmm. I'm trying. So there was a moment at Tribal Council where, at the final 6 Tribal Council, where Jeff Probst brought up idols. And he was like, anyone looking for idols? And a light bulb went off in my head, like, why is he talking about this if there are no more idols left in the game? Mm-hmm. There is no reason to bring this up except to light a fire under our butts that there's still one out there, that we should be going and looking for it. And so after that was at final 6, because that was when Jay played the fake one. And so I was like, there's one out there. I'm not coming back until I find it. And they didn't show it on the show, but I found the clue first.
Okay.
So I did find a clue again. And then I didn't have time before the challenge to go and actually find the idol. So when you see me saying to Brett, like, I'm going to go look, like, cover for me, I already have the clue at that point. So I'm a man on a mission to go actually find that thing. And now in retrospect, thinking back to that Tribal Council, it wasn't just that he was lighting a fire under our butts, and maybe it wasn't that at all, but because of the fake idol shenanigans, it was part of the conversation for that episode, mm-hmm. right? Because Jay thought he had actually found one. So in retrospect, it makes more sense why he was bringing it up. But it was helpful for me because it was like, there's definitely one out there.
Yeah.
So let's see what we have here. I'm trying to see if we have a question that would fit in right here. Doesn't look like we do.
By the way, both of those idols I found on the last day that I could have found them. Because the first one I found right before the swap, and mm-hmm. I knew, just based on the fact that the cameras were still following us everywhere, we were still getting asked about it in interviews, whether or not we were looking, I was like, it's still out there. No one has found it. And I said to the whole tribe, I was like, we have to find this thing before the Gen Xers get here. And so I staged like after I found the clue, I said to everyone, I was like, let's all go look. Let's all go. So it gave me an excuse to go and actually look where I knew it was, while everyone else went into the jungle, even though I knew it was on the beach.
Well, was it interesting seeing your old camp again, or seeing seeing Fiji again from a different angle?
Yeah, it was fun to see like Troyzan find the idol on my island. This is my island. That was my first thought when he found that. I was like, hey, that's my idol, my beach. Yeah. But no, it's really cool, and we're gonna get to see it again.
Mm-hmm. And again.
I like that we sort of christened, the Mamanuca Islands. That's fun. Mm-hmm. Get to keep seeing our spots. And we got it while there was still firewood and while there were still coconuts. So that was.
So you guys already plundered it.
We picked that place dry. By the end, by the time that we were leaving, we had to walk it seemed like a mile, but it was probably like a quarter mile or something just to get firewood, because we had all the good stuff we had already picked through.
Yeah.
You mentioned this a little bit in the answer you just gave us. How much did you look into the confessional questions for clues as to what's going on for our future players?
Not as much as you would think, but when it came to idols and stuff, I definitely was trying to figure out, is this part of the storyline? What's going on here? Is it maybe still out there? And I do think you can get a sense of if there is an idol in the game or not, based on if the cameras follow you, based on if they're asking you about idols and confessionals. At Takali, I knew there wasn't an idol. There was a sense that, I would, there were some times where I would go to the well and the camera would follow, and sometimes I would go to the well and no one would follow. And so it's a little too inconsistent to be okay, there's something here. Unless I guess, maybe I was just going in the wrong direction. Maybe it wouldn't be by the well or whatever. But there didn't seem to be a real focus on we got to capture every time someone goes off alone. Whereas at Millennial Camp, if you went off alone into the woods, there was a camera on you. So, that you can get a little bit of a sense for. But they do a really good job in terms of when they ask questions. It's very much based on your experiences. So they'll say so noticed you had a conversation with Ken. What did you guys talk about? And that's not news to me. I know I had a conversation with Ken. So there's no, they do a good job of making it match sort of what you're doing so that they don't give anything away.
That's good. That's good to know that's how that happens.
The producers do an exceptional job at not giving things away about what other players are doing, and Jeff Probst especially is so good at that at Tribal Council. He will get it out of you, but he will never be the one to say it.
Mm-hmm. Unlike
a stark contrast to say Jonathan from Australian Survivor, where he will say okay, Phoebe, you've played the best game out here. Yep. Everybody thinks that you're the biggest threat in the game because you found all these idols. You're pulling off all these blindsides. Everybody thinks you're the best player. Now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Jeff would never.
Well, Matt from, I don't know if you've seen Survivor New Zealand. He's pretty similar in blowing up people's games as well.
So I've watched the first 2 episodes, so I'm a little behind. How many are there now? How many have there been?
8.
Yep.
There's 8 already. See, I can't keep up with these international versions, man. What was it? Australia had 3
a week,
and they were 2 hours. Are you kidding me? Who has that time?
All we're missing is live feeds.
It's a struggle, yeah.
Oh my God! Nobody has that time. The players themselves don't have that much time.
Oh.
I have a question from Shell. If you were in Game Changers,
Michelle?
huh?
Michelle or a shell? If it's a
Shell.
shell, I'm gonna break it open.
What's Michelle? But she goes by Shell.
Okay, shell.
If you were in the Game Changers jury in the final where Brad, Troyzen, and Ty, who would you vote for and why?
It's a really loaded question when it comes to me because I'm friends with Ty, so I would want Ty to win. But okay, and let me also preface this: that people are going to roll their eyes, but as a viewer, you don't have enough information to say who you would have voted for at Final Tribal Council. Like, you really don't, as much as you think you know everything. Unless you're out there and actually engaging with that person, you don't know how they would have treated you. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even and you can say, I'm going to vote for gameplay, but part of gameplay, part of being a good player, is treating the people that you're out there with dignity and respect. And I'm not saying that Brad didn't. That was what the edit was trying to like get us to believe, but unless you're out there, you don't know how that person has engaged with you. And it matters. If you don't want to give someone $1 million who has been an asshole, so that being said, from what I saw on television, if I had to vote based only on that, I would vote for Ty. I think that Ty's game was incredibly undervalued in the edit. I thought that the edit did as much as they possibly could to make it seem like Ty had no idea what he was doing. And I think part of that is because of Ty himself. I think part of that is the way that Ty is not able to articulate himself in a way that conveys deliberateness, right? He isn't able to own the moves that he makes and the ideas that he gets and the instincts that he has in a way that tells a great story. But I do think that Ty's instincts, for the most part, are spot on. All throughout the early portion of the game, throughout the middle, in right up until the end of the game, Ty was easily playing one of the strongest games. Now, I think if he gets to the final three, then that continues. But I think he lost because I think he didn't get to the end because he made some mistakes in the end game. And if he hadn't made the final three, he wouldn't have made those mistakes, in which case I would have voted for him. You see what I'm saying? But those mistakes ended his game. Like, I think he could have done a lot more if he held on to his other idol at the final six and just played it for himself. I don't know how he thought Aubrey was going to be like super beneficial to his game moving forward, because maybe if it worked and they got Sarah out, then they have the numbers. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense now that I'm thinking about it out loud. But then at Final Four, he should have done sort of what I did last season, which was recognizing Sarah for the threat that she was and calling it out instead of trying to go with Sarah against Troyzan. Because if Troyzan gets voted out, he still loses the game.
Yeah.
Sarah still wins. So he wasn't playing for first there, and maybe he didn't realize it at the time, but he needed to recognize that Sarah was the biggest threat left in the game. And I think that's why he lost.
I think Sarah said in her post-exit interviews is that mostly everybody was playing for the top three to get to at least third place and not to win. And that was what she was doing. She was playing to win rather than just to make it to the finals. And I think that is why she was able to play so well.
I think that's how you have to play. I played the same way. You saw the scene in our season where I say to Dave, like, I am coming after you, because if you don't go home, I lose, and I don't care if I come in second, third, or fourth. You know, it doesn't. If I'm going to come in second, I might as well come in fourth. I'm not here for that extra $15,000. So, plus there is no shame in going out in fourth anyway. So I was like, if I'm going to be the biggest threat here and go out here, like, so be it. But I'm putting it all on the line to get Dave out here.
Yeah, I think as far as a viewer, I think I appreciate more a player going out in fourth, but going out swinging and going out big, rather than just staying back and playing it safe and taking it to the final three. Of course, you get a little bit more money if you get to the final three, right? But I think as a viewer, we appreciate that more.
Mm-hmm. I can understand it if you're dead in the water. You know, if you're at the final four and you're not in the top two, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
You know, so at the final four, there are always two people that don't have a chance anymore. You know what I mean? And so if you're able to recognize that you're one of those people, then you can, you know, have a little more fun with it, because then you can be a bit of a kingmaker and like picking, you know, who you go up against, who you can maybe get second place with. And so at a certain point you can, you know, sort of recognize that you're not going to win and go for second. But if there's still a chance that you're going to win, you've got to go all out.
Yeah. That brings us to one of our Twitter questions. Andrew Lapine at Empoleon95 asked, Adam, had David went out at final five instead of Brett, who would you have taken to the final three?
Same, so the exact same. The final three that I went with was the exact final three that I wanted from the merge on, pretty much. I knew that I would be able to beat Ken. I knew that I would be able to beat Hannah. I believed at the time, and I still believe, that I would have beaten Brett as well. But I definitely would not have swept the jury. It would have been much closer. From my calculations, I think I win 7-3 in that scenario, with him getting Chris, Sunday, and Zeke's vote. But that final four was really, really good for me. If Brett, I mean, because I think there's a good chance that even if Brett wins, that Brett takes me to the end, because I think Brett thought at the time, and I think still thinks, that he would have beaten me at final three. So I think he is willing to go with me, because we had a much better bond than he ever had with Ken and Hannah. I mean, Brett and I were tight, and Brett did not like Hannah and did not like Ken within the context of the game. So I think if Brett wins, I still make it to the final three, and I still win. If Brett doesn't win, then we vote Brett out. And I don't see any scenario in which Ken and Hannah keep Brett over me, because they were scared of him as a jury threat. They thought that Brett would run away with it at the end. Was the only one that had the idea that I thought I could actually beat Brett, but I never would have admitted that in the game.
Yeah.
I was saying to Ken and Hannah, like, Brett will crush all of us, just like I was saying about Dave. But I believed it with Dave. I didn't believe it with Brett.
Well, talking about the jury voting, one thing that I find interesting as a comparison between you and our recent winner, Sarah, is that you both went up against people that had much more immunity wins than yourself, but yet you walked away the winner. So and also people kind of had a little bit similar thoughts between Ken and Brad, not respecting their game or being very turned off by an attitude. So what do you have to say about like the challenge beasts in the game and current Survivor, of how that isn't always a winning game? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think you're way more likely to get respect in that position if you're actually the target. And Brad was a few times. I do think that if Brad didn't win all of those immunity challenges, he probably goes home at some point. So Brad had his back up against the wall, and he did what he needed to do, and he pulled out some much needed wins to stay alive. And I think that's why he had people backing him hardcore on the jury, because they were like, the guy, pulled a Mike Holloway in some respects. He wasn't as targeted as Mike was, but there was a target on his back. And that you have to respect. Anytime someone is in the minority or is a big target and is able to survive, whether it's because they win immunity or they maneuver their way out of it socially or they find idols or whatever, it's like, dang, people were coming after you hard and you were like, I'm staying. And that's you got to respect that. I think Ken's issue was that he was never a target. He never actually needed to win immunity because he wasn't going home anyway. And so, it almost would have been better for him if people were coming after him, because then he could say, I did what I needed to do to get to the end. In the end, it was like, yeah, I won immunities, but people were like, dude, we wanted, you weren't the target anyway. So what were you? You didn't need to. If anything, you put a bigger target on your back unnecessarily. So I think that's probably the reason for the respect that Brad was able to get from some of the jury members in terms of winning immunities, whereas the jury on my season didn't really value it all that much because it didn't do much for Ken in the context of the game.
I'm going to ask a question about Game Changers real quick. As far as Sarah as the winner, how do you think viewers will see her in a couple of years?
I think Sarah played an exceptional game. I mean, she played the Tony game and the Trish game.
Yeah, that's a good way of wording that.
Tony had Trish to put out his fires. Sarah put him out herself. You know what I mean? So you could say that she maybe even played a better game than Tony did. Not as flashy, doesn't give as good a confessionals, but she was able to blindside people and then immediately get them to trust her again.
How do you
do that?
Yeah, that was my insight last week. It was that I think people are not gonna see right now Sarah as one of the top tier winners because she's not able to communicate with us as a viewer what she's doing. Whereas Tony, even like Rob Mariano, he would tell us.
I mean,
I think Sarah's the top tier winner, but she just lacks that. I think as time goes by, I think people are going to see that she was a lot better player than they're giving her credit right now.
Agreed.
It's not as flashy because he was never on her.
Mm-hmm. Except for the final 6.
Oh yeah, they finally realized she's a threat. So
and the edit of that is interesting as well because those votes were not read, right?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
It happened real quick, like in the final words, like here's where all the votes were. But we never got to see that Sarah actually saved herself with the legacy advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Because she got 3 votes, right? Didn't she?
Yeah, she got 3. And Ty had 2 and Aubrey had 1, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Brad voted for Aubrey.
So if Sarah doesn't get the legacy advantage, she doesn't win.
Gone, yeah.
And so that would be potentially the only knock on her game is that she needed that advantage that had never been in the game before to exist in order to get out of that spot. But I also think that you can't really fault her for that because if she weren't immune, first of all, she got it. She worked
the way she got it will earn her points. Yeah.
And if she weren't immune, she plays the final 6 completely differently, and maybe she gets out of it, right? She didn't care if people were coming after her because she knew she had that thing. If I'm in her position, I want people to come after me. So there's a chance. I don't know. I haven't heard enough from Sarah after the game to know this, but there's a chance that maybe she tried to get votes on her so that she could dictate who went home with her vote. Who knows? Well, Sarah knows, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So, last thing on Game Changers, what did you think of the new Final Tribal Council method?
I loved that. I thought it was great. I thought it's much better because the way that they have to edit Final Tribal Council as is, someone could come up, give a little boring thing, get some boring responses, and they still have to pick something from that. Whereas now they can take the best stuff from the entire 2-hour thing, regardless of who was saying it or when it happened. You don't need to give equal time to all the jury members necessarily if someone's saying something more interesting than somebody else. So I think it's going to make for better television, and I think it's a totally fair way to do the end and have the ability to jump in. I actually think our season, I don't know how common this was or if this was a new thing when we did it, but we jumped in on other people's answers. At least Hannah and I did. When Hannah said something that I disagreed with, I was like, can I add on to that? And I think it ended up being, it drew the tribal council out a lot in a way that was, I think, boring for our jury members, unfortunately, and maybe boring for producers as well, which is maybe why they changed the thing. But if there was something that I wanted to say, I said it, and now it's institutionalized that is the way that it works. If you have something you want to say, get after it, and it makes a much more dynamic conversation, I think.
I think before it was if the person asking the question didn't want to hear you, they'll tell you that's it, and people would just like back off. And I think that's when a lot of the ability to respond to that question, it kind of just put you dead in the water when you can't say what you wanted to say or defend yourself the way you wanted to defend yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like what the producers thought was the most interesting television from our Final Tribal Council, it was many of those moments where Hannah and I sort of went after each other. And the vast majority of the night was each of us individually explaining our games, and most of that was cut out of the broadcast. Yeah. And so, maybe they sort of liked that piece of it. I don't know.
Well, as a self-proclaimed super duper fan yourself, do you think of any Final Tribal Councils that this method would have changed? Would have changed the outcome of the game? That's kind of a tough one.
Question. What do you guys think?
But a couple that come to mind to me. Co-wrong, and potentially South Pacific are two that kind of jump out to me.
Those are the two most discussed results that came from this.
From the players that were actually there too. I mean, Sophie thinks that she might have lost in this particular system, and Aubrey thinks she might have been able to show more of her game and actually win it.
Yeah,
maybe, but I think for the most part, Final Tribal Council is a show.
Yeah,
really. I think for the most part, people come into it with their minds made up. At least they did with my season. I could have said all I did was like poop in a bucket for 39 days, and I think I still win. They came into it like, at least 8 of them had already made up their minds before Final Tribal Council, and I would guess that's pretty common. Even if you see it in jury speaks with people like, well, I could go this way, they pretty much know who they're going to vote for. But I wouldn't know because I've never served on a jury. I can't even get on a real life jury. I thought that would be fun. And I've gotten jury duty a few times, and they never take me. I don't know.
So we have Mark in the chat here. It says that Nicaragua might have been changed. I don't know. I think Nicaragua, one of the finalists was disqualified before they even went out there, and we weren't even told.
You say Nicaragua? Do you mean Nicaragua?
I can't say it the way he says it. Yeah.
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua.
That's
Nicaragua.
funny. We're talking for people who don't know what we're talking about. We're talking about Survivor New Zealand, and the way that they say Nicaragua. How do they say it?
Nicaragua.
Something like that.
Nicaragua.
Yeah.
It's the funniest
I
thing.
kind of went off on that on our New Zealand premiere
Yeah.
podcast.
Oh, did you guys do a podcast for that?
Yeah, we do.
We've done a couple for New Zealand.
We got to catch up.
Yeah, we do. And the challenge invites, those are so cute. Challenge invites.
But we still kind of get a little irked by them. But
Yep.
so Mark also says that in Code Wrong, Aubrey said Scott and Jason said they would have voted Joe over Aubrey. No way Aubrey could win there. True, she did say that, but she also said that she received calls from both Jason and Scott saying that if they would have seen what they saw on TV, that they would have voted for her. Maybe they might just be trying to say that just to get on our good side. We don't know.
That's tough to see. When you see things versus when you hear things are a lot different.
The show, it's not a part. It's just, I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, it's not a part of the game. So, you know, what Michelle was able to do was win over her peers while she was out there. Maybe it was her personality. Like, she has a really fun, bubbly personality. It's the kind of personality that you want to be friends with. That's a reason to vote for someone. You know, you want to be friends with them. You want them to like you. You want, you know, so there are so many reasons why a jury member can vote the way they do, and you can't remove those human interactions that make up the daily game. So, you know.
Yeah, and I think Aubrey wasn't as confident as she is right now back then on Code Wrong. And so even if there was an open forum for him to go back and forth, I don't know if Aubrey would have been able back then to have been able to get her point across that she played a good game and to have her argument over Michelle had that been the situation.
Yeah, and I think Scott probably had his mind made up by the time he went to tribal council. So I don't know if there's anything she could have said, and that's not a knock on her at all.
No.
I do think jury members should, you know, be open-minded when they go to tribal council, but if they're not, they're not.
Does anybody have any questions left about Game Changers for Adam?
Not Game Changers, no.
There was a question I had here about Millennials versus Gen X, and I have to try to find it. It was in regards to Figgy and Taylor. I don't remember this in the Millennials versus Gen X, but saying that they didn't think you were as Survivor savvy, and smart, I guess, smartness, than you really are. Do you know where they got that from, or did you let them on, or?
The question might be in reference to like when Taylor said on the episode, like, he could be like smarter, but I don't know, man. I'm guessing it's that. Is that what we're talking about here?
Probably.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I from the very beginning, I didn't want people to think that I knew about the game or that. You know, I told them, if people asked where I went to school, I said that I went to Stanford. Like, I didn't try to hide that I was book smart, but I definitely tried to hide that I was knowledgeable about Survivor. You know, obviously, I didn't hide my enthusiasm. I wanted to, because that's something that, like, people connect over, is like, oh, you're excited to be out here, like, that's good. Like, people like that. So the enthusiasm I didn't hide at all, but the knowledge I thought wouldn't be helpful in terms of winning friends, winning allies. You know, if I ever were to go back and play again, obviously that's out the window. And I do think that was a big part of my success in the game, was that, you know, I just was sort of like, in terms of other people's thoughts on me, I didn't stand out too much. Like, yeah, I probably got here because I have a high IQ or whatever, but having a high IQ isn't super threatening in the game of Survivor. But knowing a lot about the way things work that's more threatening. So like right from the very beginning, I knew just from listening to podcasts and reading interviews or whatever that the water was going to be fine to drink from the well. It's not something that like production was not thrilled with me, like asking them like, can you drink the water? And they're like, you got to boil the water. You got to boil the water. I was like, but do you really? Like, where's that water coming from? And I knew that the risk of dehydration was greater than the risk of getting sick from the water that was in the well. It didn't taste good, but I didn't want people to know that I got that from reading blogs or listening to podcasts or whatever. So it was another way that I could sort of make people think that I wasn't all that smart, because I was like, I don't know, guys. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, it can't be that bad. Like, I'm just gonna try it. Like, I'm gonna try it, and if it works out, like, you guys have some too, or whatever. Like, and so I was like, I don't know, man.
I think you did it more like Rudy in his season, or is it Sue that was just drinking the water just like that? But then Bruce, even using his 4 t-shirt layer kind of filtration system, he got sick and he ended up going home.
You can get sick. Like, that water is not safe. All I'm saying is the risk of dehydration is far greater than the risk of you getting sick from that water, because the show, these people are smart. They don't want 20 of their contestants to have to get medically evacuated because there's freaking pathogens in the water. So they're not gonna put like very dangerous like water from like a still river or something. You know what I mean? Like,
I wonder if there's like a big old tank.
A couple days and things can get in it. So
true.
Boil it if you can, but if you can't, if you don't have fire, you better be drinking that water.
I wonder if they have a big old tank and then it just leads to like a Dasani filtration.
No, definitely not. That water in there was still like it and the top isn't like sealed. So there's definitely stuff getting in there. We found bugs in there. At one point there was like a dead lizard in there.
Ooh.
And I would guess that after we reported the lizard that they probably like put new water in there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
You would think. But there's bugs in there. There's nasty stuff, so you can definitely get sick.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about Figgy and Taylor, and I did receive a question from one of our viewers, Ivan, about this. When you did switch tribes to Takali, if your swap tribe lost that first challenge, knowing that you would probably have a few more challenges before the merge, would you have still made the same decision that you made of voting out Figgy? If it would have been right away after the swap? And knowing you have more to come?
It depends on what would have happened after we lost. My plan through going into the challenge that we actually lost, I was still on board with voting out Ken. Ken, if I had to vote in that moment, I would have voted out Ken. Because Ken did not talk strategy with me. And Figgy and Taylor and I had rebuilt a bond that I didn't think was possible. So I had, new ins with the Millennials. And I did buy that they, they never knew that I was like one of the instigators of actually coming after them. Like, Figgy talked about how she prayed about being on a swap tribe with me, which is something that she should not have prayed for if she knew that I was what I was actually doing at Millennial camp. But she hadn't, and I think that speaks to that no one ratted me out at Millennials. She had no idea that I was. She thought I went along with like Mari's plan and Zeke's plan in that first vote. and that I didn't want to do it or whatever. But that was just as much my plan as it was theirs. But the fact that she trusted me, that we were getting along well, that I thought Ken was going to be a big threat down the line, you know, it's hard, it's really hard to say. But there were definitely moments where if I had to vote, I would have written Ken's name down.
So we're about an hour in already. Does anybody have any questions about Millennials versus Gen X?
I had one just after seeing Zeke and Michaela both get to play again. Which other two of your former Millennials Gen X castmates do you think deserves a second chance?
A lot of them, and
yeah, I agree.
I think a lot will. I think Jeff really likes our cast. He said some really nice stuff, like the morning of the reunion, about our cast. You know, and I think he would have just about, if he could, I think he would even do like a repeat season, you know. But I don't think that's realistically in the cards. I think the two most obvious are Dave and Jay.
Yeah,
like you got to bring those guys back. There's still so much more, I think, that we can see out of both of them. But I think Jessica's perfect for a second chance this season.
Agreed.
Yeah. I think you could see Mari in the mix potentially. I think it's a good sign that they brought her for that EW Pop Fest thing. Chris is a you know, fills a role in a cast. He's a big, strong guy, but he plays the game hard. I think there's a lot of people that could do really well on a second go.
Speaking of Jessica, what was your mindset going into that tribal with the rock draw?
What's that?
What was your mindset going into that tribal with the rock draw? Were you expecting that to go to rocks, and when you guys were drawing the rocks right then and there, what was going through your mind?
My whole life.
Yeah.
Like the fear in that moment is indescribable. I was so terrified that I was going to go home with an idol in my pocket right before the loved ones visit, because I had a feeling it was coming soon. It was already like the rock draw was like, day 30? So I was like, family visit has to be soon. And I was like, I'm going to leave with an idol. I'm going to let my family down. I'm not even going to be able to see them. I screwed this up. Like, I can't believe this is ending this way. And I still I still feel so incredibly bad for Jessica. So, I mean, by far the most devastating boot of the entire season.
Yeah.
So going into it, I thought that there was a real good chance that we could go to rocks. And sitting right before we walked into tribal council, you know, that like we're in this area because we have to wait for like the sun to go down. We're not allowed to talk to each other. And I'm lying down on my bag and the idol is in there. And I'm thinking, I got to play it. I got to play that thing. Tonight, I can't risk it. I won't go home on a rock draw. I have to play the idol. And so I decided before tribal council that I was going to play that idol. And then I got convinced during the tribal council that the votes were going on Ken, and I not convinced 100%, but like, you know, I felt good about the chances that if we played an idol on Ken, that I wouldn't need to play my idol, that we wouldn't go to rocks because that would be it. And, you know, I would have made an even dumber decision if Dave hadn't played his idol for Ken. I would have.
Yeah.
I was ready to pull that thing out and play it for Ken. And so that's a huge knock on my game. The fact that I misread that situation, that I would have done even worse but the one thing that you can say on the other side is that I saved my idol by getting Dave to play it the way that I would have played my own.
Yep.
Because Dave wanted to play it for himself. He did play it for himself. and I was the one that said I think you should play it for Ken. So by doing that, I saved myself an idol, and I gave myself one more out in terms of the draw, because if Dave plays it for himself, this is all bad. If Dave plays it for himself, then I play mine for Ken. We still tie.
Mm-hmm.
If we go to rocks, I now have a 1 in 5 chance of my own doing of going home, as opposed to a 1 in 6. Although on the other hand, now that I'm thinking about it even more, I think if my side plays 2 idols,
Yeah.
Because then he's like, what am I not flipping for? In the 2 out of 5 chance that it's the other side, it would have incentivized the other side to flip. So maybe I should have played it. I don't. I still don't know what to do in that moment. I'm like, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And I still don't know what the right answer is. Maybe play it for myself. I don't know. It was such a hard call.
In the rock draw, do you decide who picks the rock, or does Jeff just come up randomly to somebody?
He went from, his right to left. So Jessica was the first one, and then, and theoretically someone could pull a Tyson and say, I want to pick last or whatever, but nobody said anything. So luckily by the time it came to me, there were no bad rocks. But I didn't know that.
So we had talked about when we talked with Jessica, is that when you're pulling the rock, the two out of 3 times that the person went first, they picked the white rock. And the one time that was Tyson, right? That pulled it last, and he went on that rock, on that draw. No, who was it? Katie Collins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Katie Collins. She went last, and she pulled the rock. So I would think as long as you go in the middle, based on what the numbers right now, you'll be okay. But I still wouldn't risk it.
If you don't believe in logic and numbers,
the reverse bell curve,
then sure. If you're superstitious, then sure. But it really doesn't matter.
So we had a question actually towards the beginning here that wanted to save to now. Is Jimmy, what theme would you like to see in future season Survivor? I would like to see a U.S. versus Australia season. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
You'd be set up pretty well for that, I would say.
Yes.
No, I wouldn't, because people would think that I was a threat for knowing everybody.
True.
There's that.
Yeah. What theme would I like to see? I would like to see super fans versus super duper fans.
There you go.
How do you classify that?
Yeah.
You count as a super duper fan because you have a podcast and about 1,000 buffs behind you.
I don't have everything memorized, though. I don't have all the stats memorized. So, I mean, that's Randy's job.
It's up to you to classify yourself as what level of super or super duper fan you are. But let's not go beyond that. We don't need a super duper duper fan.
Yeah.
No.
With
what? So let's see. Look, people give production a lot of grief for these themes, but can you think of a better one? I can't. So, why not? Like, go with it's. I don't know. You guys got anything?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
the biggest one I've heard and I've always enjoyed for a returnee season would be a rival. Yeah.
Yes.
Rivals is the biggest one that I've heard. But for a new player season, that's hard to do. That's hard to think about of what new theme to do.
East Coast versus West Coast.
No.
Yeah.
That's not a way. It has to be something that Jeff can talk about in a way that you live your life differently.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
speaking of that, and speaking of themes, what
non-profit versus for-profit or something?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
What H tribe are we missing next season? In your mind, what'd you say?
I said hookers.
Hookers. Yeah, so I think there's been a lot of them, and there's been a lot of fun ones been thrown around. I think it was Randy Bailey was asked on Twitter, and he said he would be a heathen if he was in it. So there's some good ones out there.
Hedonist.
Yeah.
I like that. What else? How about a Heartthrobs tribe?
There
Yeah.
you go.
That's one you will be on.
Oh, Mark. How about a I got nothing.
Well, to us, kind of like a question something that you have always said after your time on Survivor that's always stuck with me. And I think I've asked multiple questions on Twitter and on different podcasts that you've been on about this. That really has stuck out to me is when you've always said, if you're not here to make friends, you're not playing the game right. And that is a thing that's always, but yeah, this season is a little bit with
Sarah. Didn't she literally say something like, "I'm not here to make friends"?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
So
she won.
I know nothing.
But see, she said, "I'm not here to make friends," but she still made friends with almost everybody.
Yes. That was a sort of do as I do, not as I say kind of thing. Because it's fun to say I'm not here to make friends, but she did make friends.
So yeah, that way of looking at the game has always kind of stood out to me because that's just such a reality TV trope as I'm not here to make friends. But the way that you kind of took that and turned that in your game of how important that is, do you have anything more to say on that? Because that's just something that's always stuck out to me when you've spoke about that.
It's important for the game. It's important for life.
Yeah.
It's the biggest piece of Survivor advice that I would give, and it's the biggest piece of life advice that I would give. And I think far too many people are too quick to like give up on other people. Maybe they disagree with you, so you write them off. You think I can't befriend that person. I think it's it's the crux of a lot of our political problems. I think if people got to know each other, I think if people listened for a second and got to hear, where people are coming from, meet people that are not like them, become friends with them, this whole world would be a better place. Sounds real cheesy, but it's
very true though.
It's my motto for everything at this point. I mean, if you aren't able to connect with other human beings in business, in Survivor, in anything, you won't be as successful as someone who's building real connections and real relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because even in business, you need to network. You need to put yourself out there to meet people. Maybe even to go from one job to another job, you need a network. You need to,
And I don't use the word network because I think there is, well, that's not, I'm sure I've used the word network before. I just made up that I don't use the word network. I've been in my life before. But I think more than networking is, because you can meet people, but if they don't like you, they're not going to want to help you. They're not going to want to work with you.
How about connect?
Yeah, you have to just be genuine and listen and connect. And I think if you do that, then the rest follows.
Yeah.
So how far? Let's say 2 years, 3 years. How far can we see you back on Survivor?
Whenever they want me back, really, I'll play tomorrow. I won't be in good shape for it because I am a tub of lard at this point. But I haven't this getting on Survivor was not good for my body. Not because just of going through 39 days of starvation and what that does, but because I don't like working out. Survivor was my motivation to get in shape. I was like, I need to be in good shape so that I can get cast on Survivor and so that I can do well on Survivor. And then I won, and I'm like, what do I need to work out for? And my motivation sucks. So, something's got to give. I got to start thinking in the mindset that I might go back on. So I better get back in the gym.
You mentioned earlier on that you were kind of in the talks for Game Changers.
No.
No.
I didn't say that.
Okay, never mind.
He kind
Okay,
of knew about it.
He just knew about it.
Okay. Because I read Inside Survivor. I am on Reddit. Like I know about casting spoilers and stuff. So I know that there's a new group out there now, which is really exciting, and I want to I can't wait to watch a whole new group of players play. But yeah, so casting stuff, I've always sort of like been looking at, so that's why I knew about that. Yeah. But no, I was definitely never asked. They never would have asked, given the circumstances. Yeah. And even if they did, I definitely would not have gone back. Not at that moment. But now, from here on out, whenever, whatever, there's nothing holding me back.
You're gonna be like Sandra. I think I forgot who it was that said the story that she missed the call from casting, and she called right back and said, "Whatever it is, yes." So she was willing to go out there, and even right now, she'll go out there again.
Absolutely. What don't you guys think? Season 39.
Oh
is
yeah,
the perfect time.
Perfect
for some kind of
all winners.
All winners, don't you think?
Are you hinting at something?
I am not, and I was about to say, because I knew you were going to ask that, or some people were going to think it. I have zero inside knowledge. No one, yes, talks to me. I don't have any inside scoop. Some people will pretend that they do. I know nothing. But wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I agree.
Fantastic.
I have no idea if it's in the works. I have no idea if it's just a made-up thing that like we all like sort of fantasize about, or if that's a real thing. But if it is a real thing, I want in.
How about Survivor versus Fallen Angels?
Survivor versus what?
Fallen Angels, which is normally what the fourth place or fifth place now.
Last out before the final.
Fourth place or whatever.
Something like that, yeah.
Sure, why not?
Because that's usually when the fan favorite usually gets taken out is right before the final.
Yeah, except why didn't they edit Ty like that this season? I don't understand. They could have given him a winner's edit so easily, and we could have been going into the final four being like, who's going to win, Ty or Sarah or Brad?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. But then again, I'm also the one who thought Ty was going to be the first one out. So what do I know?
Well, we all thought that Ty was going to be the first one out. I don't think anybody picked Sarah or even thought Sarah was gonna win. But I just start
at number 2 in my winner likelihood of winner rankings
preseason.
Yeah, because I was like, she is underestimated. She never got to really show her stuff last time around, and no one is looking at her as a threat.
Yeah,
I jumped on the Sarah train. I think right after the merge when Ozzy went out.
I thought Brad was going to win up through the merge, and then after the merge, Brad started to get nothing, and they actually even referred to him as like Sierra's lapdog or something like that, and I was like, there goes that.
Yeah. I also jumped on her train because she was the last person on my draft.
Yeah, you did draft her 10th overall, so
yeah. I'm looking back at our drafts for Game Changers. It's just the boot order and the pick order is basically backwards.
Yeah,
so it's very interesting.
So I don't have any more questions for Millennials or GenX or Game Changers. What do you expect to see from Triple H?
Good Survivor, hopefully. I have no idea. Who knows?
From the little clip that we've seen so far, I think I'm gonna like it.
I already think the bellhop's fantastic television.
Yeah. What do you think about the seasons that start with 3 tribes, the 18-person seasons?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Sorry. I think it's a great. I think the 3-tribe format works really, really well.
Yep.
All right, so I think that's all the questions we had for you. Do you have anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, thanks for everyone who's listening, who's been asking questions. I appreciate you guys like still caring what I have to say, even though I've like done like 10,000 podcasts. I apologize to anyone who listens to all my podcasts because I know I repeat some of the same stuff. So thanks for, I guess, not getting bored of me. I'm bored of me. Can you imagine what it's like to live? Like, I have to spend 24/7 with myself. I literally cannot get away.
But I think Survivor, as a community, Survivor fans, we enjoy and we take in anything that comes from Survivor.
Yeah.
So, any post-exit interview that I see right now, I'm downloading and I'm watching it or I'm listening to it. Any new podcast that I can open myself to, I listen to it because I absorb Survivor.
Yeah, and plus, Adam, you have the aura of being the youngest winner in Survivor history, so there's that.
By age.
Currently standing.
By birth date. So I apologize to the likes of you guys who listen to everything. I do think I really appreciate you guys having me on. I do think it's time for a podcast hiatus for me because I don't want people to get so sick of me that they don't want me back on a future season of Survivor. And I feel like I'm already like towing that line very, very closely of like enough Adam, like we've heard enough from him. So
let us know if you do that. That way we can market this as Adam's last podcast before his silence. All right.
Is there anything else you would like to plug before we go?
Yeah, if you know, I will always plug the I'm still working on the lung cancer research stuff. So you know, if you guys are inspired at all, I would appreciate a donation of any amount to our campaign. It's at youcaring.com/Susie Klein. Maybe you guys can put it in the description. And honestly, like a $5 donation, whatever. Just every time I get one of those, where I see one of those come in, it just like brightens my spirits just a little bit, knowing that like people are listening, people are caring, people are remembering my mom and the way that she lived her life. So, you know.
I think what I've said in the past is that even if you can't donate, just sharing it is helps spread the word, and even that it helps out.
Right, and you know, tweet at me at Adam Scott Klein if you you know, have more questions or enjoyed the podcast or whatever today. I love to hear like, you know, feedback from you guys. It makes this sort of stuff like worth it. I'm sure the same goes for you guys in terms of loving to hear feedback, that sort of thing. And then I'll do one more little plug for my friend, Steph. I'm wearing her shirt. She's a up and coming music artist. So she sings and is a DJ, and you should check her out. Some If. Figure if I'm wearing the shirt, I might as well plug it.
There you go. Oh, by the way, we got someone saying, "Patty, love you, Adam. Would never get tired of you coming back on the show or on this podcast." She said.
Cool. Thanks.
I added to this podcast, but so yeah, I guess we'll leave it there. This will pretty much wrap up our coverage of Survivor Game Changers. We still need to catch up on Survivor New Zealand. I don't know, maybe this weekend we might be able to do that.
Should I watch it? Should I keep going? Is it good?
It's good. I have issues with it. There's issues I have with the way they structured it, but it's still Survivor.
It's something.
I enjoy it, but like Randy said, it's just there's little things that we nitpick in it, and if you even go back to our episodes when we recap and we're actually making fun of it more than anything else, but we actually enjoy it and we actually watch it. So if you don't know the way we are, it kind of seems like we don't like it, but we actually like it. It's just
sounds good. I'll keep going for now.
Yeah.
Oh, I finally am watching season 4 of The Genius. I'm on episode
there you go.
3 episodes now. So good.
Very
So
good.
You're further than me. I've only gotten through 2 seasons.
If I spoke Korean, I'd want to go to Korea and meet those guys too.
Yep.
All right, guys, we'll leave it there. I want to say a big thank you once again to Adam, the sole survivor of Millennials versus Gen X, and we'll see you guys for the next season of Survivor. Triple H. I'm just going to say Triple H because I'm not going to remember the order. And I might have something going on with Abe, who's been one of our more vocal fans of the show, doing a couple of things here and there with him on the off season, but we'll see how that works out. All right, guys. So I want to thank you guys once more. Remember to subscribe and to hit the like button, and we'll see you guys next season.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. This has been
Bye,
fun.
everyone. Thank you.